planet's temperature has risen unusually fast, about 1.2 to 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Scientists believe it's human activity that's driving the temperatures up, a process known as global warming. Ever since the Industrial Revolution began, factories, power plants, and eventually cars have burned fossil fuels such as oil and coal, releasing huge amounts of carbon dioxide and other gases into the atmosphere. Meanwhile, readings taken from ice cores show that the greenhouse gases carbon dioxide and methane have hit their highest levels in the past 420,000 years. As long as industrialized nations consume energy and developing countries increase their fossil fuel consumption, the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere will continue to rise.
Britain, the United States, and Japan have all gone through periods of enormously rapid industrial growth, and many of them in the course of that have ended up leaving a legacy of pollution that they have subsequently needed to clean up. China has a different situation. It's going through an industrial revolution of its own, which in some ways is happening in a more compressed time frame than those other great powers in history. But it's also got pollution on a scale that those other great powers never quite experienced. There are hundreds of thousands of people in China who are dying every year from pollution-related diseases. The only larger cause of death in China now than pollution-related diseases is smoking.
16 of the 25 most polluted cities in the world are in China. And in the area of water pollution, they're having problems in a lot of areas with people not having access to safe drinking water. That's leading to problems with health.
China last year, at least according to one study, has become the largest emitter of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Now you also have China confronting a situation where pollution is not purely a domestic issue, it's an international issue.
Green GDP is really an attempt to arrive at a true cost of economic growth by not just looking at the straight GDP figure, but calculating in some of the costs of environmental pollution and environmental degradation and resource use. Chinese experts and international experts have realized there hasn't been enough focus on the environmental cost of that growth. Everyone knows that pollution has been very serious, but if you can calculate it into the GDP, that really gives people a clearer picture of what you're really achieving. You know, if you actually have a lot of damage to your own environment and you're losing a lot of resources, are you really growing at the amount that you think you're growing?
The first year's report was officially released publicly. After that report was published, we know from some people involved in the effort that provincial leaders, among others, felt that this project was a threat to them, especially to some of those in provinces that have the most heavy industry, who saw their reported growth rates reduced the most. And a lot of them protested this effort.
Officials in local areas, they're not going to like the idea of a green GDP, because if they continue to do what they're doing, the GDP figures will go down.
They currently have put in place some quite ambitious targets for reducing emissions of various pollutants, and also for reducing the amount of energy that's required to produce each dollar of GDP.
Of China, many people, more than 1 billion in China. easy.